Welcome to today's edition of the Jungle Juice Podcast. I'm Sam Gormley. He's Mick Nelson. Mick, happy Easter. We now have the Final Four for March Madness. How are things going?
Oh, going good. Went down to my wife's family, their place in Richmond, Kentucky, about an hour and a half south of here in Cincinnati. Had a good time over there. Watched the Reds with the hey, I'm seeing something that says recording error on
You're
my
good.
end.
Nope, you're good.
Are you
It
sure?
must be on your end, so I think we're okay. Yep.
Oh, fine. Okay, cool. You're the only end that matters. Anyways, yeah, it was a good time. Watched the Reds walk off with the win. Watched big man from NC State bully Duke in the second half. Great game from them. They're going to be in the Final Four as an 11 seed. I did not have that on my bracket. I don't think I even had them making it out of the first round. I don't even remember who they play in the first round.
They played Texas Tech. I did have them beating Texas Tech.
I did not have them beating Texas Tech.
And I won't mention who I had them losing to in the second game. We don't need to get there.
Who did you have them losing to in the second game?
Do we need to talk about this?
I don't even know who it is.
They ended up beating Oakland.
Oh, yeah, they did end up beating Oakland.
Yes,
just like the Cats didn't do.
Okay. We got a lot to get to today. Talking about today, our show primarily is going to be all about pick number 18 because there are a lot of different ways that the Bengals can go with pick number 18 this year. It could be a right tackle, could be a cornerback, could be a defensive lineman, could be a wide receiver. Maybe it's Brock Bowers. Maybe it's a tight end. I don't know. It could go a lot of different ways, or maybe they shock us all and they draft a punter. In round number 1, they got that guy from Iowa. You never really know. It might be him that they take with pick number 18. But before we get to that, we invite you as well to follow us on our social media channels. We're trying to up our like count on Facebook, so make sure you follow us along there. And also our YouTube channel. You can subscribe to us. We're on Twitter as well at the Jungle Juice Podcast. And we're also on your favorite podcasting platform. You can listen to the show on Spotify, iTunes, all of the different ways there. But Mick, there was some big news this week from the NFL, and it's a couple of rule changes. First one, hip drop tackle. Logan Wilson, such a dirty guy. He's so dirty.
Dirty dog.
He, the tackle that he did on Mark Andrews is now he can't do that anymore. Can't do it. Against the rules. We'll start with that. Do you have any opinion?
Start betting the overs in weeks 1 and 2 of the regular season because this is gonna. I mean, you don't see hip drop tackles happen. They're not like the most common tackle you ever see, but you see them happen. And players definitely did them at a decent sized rate up until now, I guess. Yeah, just start betting the overs on these games. I mean, this is going to favor offenses into, I don't want to say unfair proportions, but it's going to be kind of, I think the scoring is going to be kind of ridiculous, pretty much going forward here on out.
Yeah, I think it'll be very interesting to see. What I don't like is that it opens up the opportunity for officials to have more judgment calls.
Yeah.
Because that's just going to open up the can of worms that we've heard so many times, and whether you believe it or not, I don't think you do, Mick. At least I hope you don't, of the whole NFL rig thing, and all of that. One of these calls is going to happen in a big moment of a game. It might even be like week 1, the Thursday night game. The Chiefs are hosting whoever they're hosting, the Texans. I don't know. I think that's one of the games that they're hosting. Is that going to be something that is at least going to be concerning? Is that it opens up that opportunity? That's my realm that I'm a little hesitant with it.
I'm not too worried about that aspect of it. I think of it more in the realm of a horse collar tackle, where I think it's pretty clear if it's a hip drop tackle or not, along the lines of if something is a horse collar tackle or not. When somebody's grabbing at the jersey at the shoulder pad level, maybe it's not as clear and obvious as a horse collar tackle, but I think it's somewhat in the same realm as it's. I think it's pretty it's more identifiable than it would be, a defensive pass interference call or a defensive holding call or something along those lines.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting because I think as I mentioned, in fact I think it was on the I think it was just to you before we started that I think this is going to be something that the average fan is not even going to realize happens.
Yeah,
until it's a big call late in a game. Because it's going to happen. It's inevitable that a call like that will happen late in a game. It's inevitable. It's just like a pass interference, a holding, a false start, or offsides, right? Here we go. That's going to have controversy, especially with a new rule. That's where I'm going to be a little bit concerned because that's going to immediately get that group of fans that's going to say, oh, because I already saw the joke that was being passed around that I'm waiting. Like I think somebody said, I'm waiting for this to happen, and Patrick Mahomes is going to get the benefit of the doubt on this. Or, it would have been Tom Brady a few years ago. And I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. But I think it does open up the realm for the NFL to have more of that. And that's my main concern when it comes to it. But again, I'm open.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the fans are nearly as mad about this as the players are. I think the NFLPA actually released a statement right before the owners decided to vote on because the owners voted on this, right?
Yes.
Yes. Right before the owners decided to vote on whether to expel the hip drop tackle or to ban it or not. And I think they released a statement saying, please don't do this, essentially. Like, this is, and I feel like if the players union is saying that, like, I feel like, I don't know. I mean, it's the players. The players are the ones on the field that it's happening to. If their representatives are saying, "Hey, we don't care about the hip drop tackles," we know the Mark Andrews thing happened, but it's not like a crazy, inherently dangerous tackle in the game. It's stupid that you guys are thinking about getting rid of this. I think that's where I'm kind of like, I mean. The players union cares a lot about player safety too. I mean, that was pretty much the whole focal point of the labor negotiations in 2020 was player safety. And if that's something they're not really concerned about, I'm just not sure why the owners are really addressing that, I guess. I mean, I think it's more reacting to what the media was saying about it more than anything.
I see this too a lot, and what Scott says is it's going to be flag football. I don't think we're ever going to get to that point that, it's going to be that. I think this is the NFL trying to make the game safer. Now, is it going to be successful? I don't know, because my worry is that this is now going to cause defensive players to figure out another way to tackle, and that might be getting a little bit higher. Now, is that a good thing? I don't know. And that'll be interesting. The other rule change that I want to make sure that we get to, because we got a lot more to talk about as well, kickoffs. The traditional kickoff that we've seen throughout history, it's no more. They've changed it. And Mick, I think it's best just to let the NFL explain as to what the change is, and then we'll give our opinions here. So let's see if this will work. Okay, Mick. The changes there. You just saw the video for the new kickoff rule for the NFL. I see here Matt writes in and says he's not a fan. What say you, Mick? I think you're on mute.
My bad. I had the mic muted during the
I
video.
feel like we're back in Zoom here.
I'm kind of torn on the new kickoff. I think it's going to make kickoffs matter. It's going to make them more entertaining. It's going to bring a more entertaining product to kickoffs, which, I think that the entertainment value on kickoffs has been pretty non-existent over the past, I don't know how long. I mean, but I just think the messaging from the NFL is kind of confusing, where you guys are concerned about player safety with the hip drop tackle. You guys made all these rule changes in the past on kickoffs, incentivizing to more touchbacks, getting the ball to the 25-yard line. And I think that rule change was from 5-10 years ago. I can't necessarily remember. Last year, you implemented a kickoff change rule where you could fair catch a ball in between the 25 and the goal line, and you would get the ball at the 25. But now you are having this insane new kickoff rule that I think is more contradictory to what the rules you did in the past. And I think it makes kick returning, I don't know. Is there any data that shows that it makes it less safe or more safe than the traditional kickoff?
To me, here's the reason why it's more safe. And again, I'm not an expert. This is just me trying to read in between the lines as to why it is, I think. Is that in a typical kickoff, the one that we're using it, you have the kicking team running full speed as fast as they absolutely can at the other team. Whereas now, you're going to just have one guy running full speed, and homeboy is Evan McPherson. And let's be real, Evan McPherson versus Joe Bocci, just using an example of a special teams guy, there's a little bit of a difference between, fear put into the returner as far as to coming down and making a hit.
So I must have lost this in the video. So where is the kicking team lining up as opposed to everybody but the returner on the receiving team?
So let's see if I can find it here in the video on this. So you have that. There you go.
Okay, that makes it more safe. Yeah, I like this rule now.
So that's an example of what it is. So you'll have that the receiving team gets to line up between the 30 and the 35-yard line, and the kicking team can line up at the 40-yard line. So if you can see there in the graphic, it has an opportunity. Here's my philosophy with it. And I'm going to take the mentality that I have. And honestly, the pitch clock last year in MLB is what taught me. I went into the pitch clock not thinking I was going to be a fan. It took me a week, and I thought it was great for the game of baseball. So for this, I'm going to go in with an open mind. And I'm going to say that, Mick, I almost might make a reminder that 1 year from today, we can, or maybe in January or hopefully late February, because we're doing shows into the Super Bowl, we can revisit this and see it's a great decision or it was a bad decision. Because right now, I don't know. I'm intrigued, though. And I don't know that that's necessarily a good thing, bad thing. I'm just intrigued by what could happen with it.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. I think I personally like it. I pretty much kickoffs have been a moot point for I can't even tell you how long. They've been a moot point for at least the past 5 years, probably the past 10 years. This brings a lot of value to the kick returning position again.
Scott brings up an interest. Oh, go on, finish here.
I mean, you kind of saw this too. I mean, last week, as soon as this rule change came into play, Cordarrelle Patterson gets picked up by the Steelers. So by the Steelers,
I think so. I think that's right. Yeah.
But yeah, as soon as this rule change came out, the Steelers are like, okay, Cordarrelle Patterson, come on down. You're going to provide a crucial role to the team. You're going to see more kickoff returns for touchdowns, I think, this way. Now, if they lands in the end zone, I don't know if I picked up. Do they get the ball at the 35-yard line? Is that what it is?
Okay, so we need to turn off the sound here. So One of the things, though, and Scott brings up the point here while watching this video. So anyone that lands if it bounces from the landing zone into the end zone must be returned or down by the in possession at the 20. So like usual, if the kick fails to reach the 20, it goes to the 40-yard line. But okay, so if it enters the end zone in the air, the receiving team can return it or down it and take possession at the 35. So there you go. So there is your answer, Mick.
Now I will say this makes the jobs of the kickers a lot harder.
Yeah, because you're going to really try and cough and corner. I want to get to Scott's point here. He said, just think what would happen if we have onside kicks. Now, this does, if a team wants to onside kick it, it has to be in the fourth quarter, and they have to go to the official and say, we are going to onside kick it. The one thing that this does take away is the quote-unquote surprise onside kick.
Sean Payton kick. The Sean Payton
Correct.
Super Bowl onside kick is no longer
it will no longer be a thing. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? My thing with it is how often does that actually even happen?
I don't know, but when it does, it wins you a Super Bowl. So,
and I understand that point, but I just overall, I want to go in with an open mind and see what I think about it. And heck, I might even by the end of September, 4 weeks into the season, be like, this sucks. Or I might say, after 1 week, insert Bengals return man that I don't think is on the team right now. Maybe it's Chase Brown. I don't know. Returns a kick for a touchdown, and I think it's the greatest thing that has ever happened. I don't know.
They're going to have to find a good kick returner now. Like, they don't have
I agree.
Necessarily a kick returner. I mean, Trevion Williams, I think, has been decent in that area. And maybe you try to give him the gig, but like, I think you're going to have to find a more dynamic guy in that area. I don't think Charlie Jones is necessarily the answer on kickoff returns, but
he showed stuff during punt returns. But I mean, the Bengals haven't had a good kick returner since Brandon Wilson.
Maybe bring him back. I don't know. Is he?
He's a free agent, but he hasn't played. Right, he hasn't played the league in 2 years since he didn't make the team since having that ACL injury.
Mm-hmm.
But it'll be very interesting to see what happens about it. Maybe they take one at pick 18. I don't know. Maybe they do. Speaking of pick 18, that's what this show is really going to be all about today, because there's a lot to discuss. Because there's a lot of ways that the Bengals can go. But I have a couple of factoids here. Yep, Scott brings up a good point. Stanford Jennings in the Super Bowl. One of the best plays in Bengals history. Returned a kick for a touchdown. Last 5 years, pick number 18. Jack Campbell, Traylon Burks, Jalen Phillips, Austin Jackson, Garrett Bradbury. Not necessarily the most wow list, but hey, you're picking at pick 18 for a reason. Mick, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Do you know who the Bengals have picked 18th twice?
Oh, shoot.
Who is the last Bengal to be drafted 18?
I'm going to go with David Pollack.
No. 2007. I'll be nice there and give you that.
2007.
2007.
Keith Rivers.
No, incorrect.
Oh.
Incorrect. Okay. Incorrect. You're on the right side of the ball, but you're forgetting a Bengals legend. A Michigan man himself.
Oh, Leon. There we go.
Leon Hall. And Alfred Williams was the other one in 1991. So that's so the Bengals have not picked 18th since 2007 when it was Leon Hall. Now, does that mean anything? Of course not. I just found it interesting. Now, it was interesting that there have been a couple of quarterbacks drafted at 18. Guy by the name of Joe Flacco. And then some guy, he's the head coach of the Lexington Sayre High School football team.
Oh,
he made a poor choice for college, but he had an okay career in the NFL.
Let's go Herd. Go Herd, the man.
So primarily it was Trevion Williams last year was doing the kickoff return duties. Chris Evans also had that opportunity, but Chris Evans was a healthy scratch most of last year. So pick number 18.
Good as a kick returner, by the way.
No, he was not, and that's probably the reason why he's not going to be on the Bengals next year. For pick number 18, this year, there is a lot of intrigue around this for the Bengals. And I think the best way for us to do this is just go position by position and say, these are the guys that we think have the opportunity. And then when we're done going through this, Mick and I are both going to make our prediction for who they take. First off, I think it's easy to say, Mick, that they're not taking a quarterback at 18. They're not taking a running back at 18. At least I can't imagine they do. I mean, there's more of a likelihood they take a running back than a quarterback. They're not taking a kicker, a punter, a long snapper. I'd be shocked if they take a safety. They don't really need one, nor is there really one there. Again, unless it's Cooper DeJean, that might be like a... And I don't see them taking a linebacker.
No. Yeah, I think those are...
Other than that,
right.
I think you could make an argument for every position on the team next year being in field. I'd even throw edge. Edge is probably more towards the not taking, but if one of these top guys like a Dallas Turner drops, like it'd be tough. It'd be tough to say no. But to me, the most likely
Latu drops, that would be I
from LSU.
I mean, yeah, UCLA.
That's what I meant. UCLA. Yeah.
Yeah. If Latu drops, yeah, sign me up. That guy is amazing.
We'll come back to those guys later. But I think the most likely is they go right tackle. First, Scott says, is Odell Beckham a possibility or a rumor? I'd be stunned if they signed Odell Beckham.
I mean, I'd be for it. I like OBJ. I think he's pretty damn good.
I'd be stunned. He has been known as to be kind of a cantankerous personality. And the Bengals 10 years ago, yes, they probably would have. But I don't think the Zach Taylor era likes to bring in the cantankerous guys.
Yeah, it depends, I think. I mean, I think he has good relations with Jamar and Joe, where maybe he would kind of put the personality aside, kind of like he did with the Rams, honestly. You never really hear him be a problem in the Sean McVay locker room. And maybe that's the type of culture the guy needs, right? I mean, and I don't know. I didn't really hear him being a huge problem in Baltimore either. So I think it depends on the locker room and the culture more than, if is the player, a problem in the locker room, if you get what I mean. I think the Bengals have a strong enough culture where I think that Odell Beckham would buy into that.
I hope so. I still do not see it happening. But the most likely pick that the Bengals make at 18, Mick, I think we both can agree, is a right tackle.
Yes, I would
probably
say
the most likely. Now, I think that percentage has changed a little bit over the last 10 days due to the signing of Trent Brown. I think it went from being, if we're being honest, they wouldn't have signed Trent Brown. It might have been closer to like 90 to 95% that they probably would have taken a guy like that because it was a necessity. Whereas now it's probably dropped a little bit more. I don't really know what that percentage is, but I think it's more than likely not.
I would say it's probably still like a 75% chance, just because
I was thinking 70. So yeah,
we've talked about on last week's show, like we know that Trent Brown is a solid NFL tackle, but people talk about Teron Armstead being the tackle that's elite but can't stay healthy. And if we're looking at percentage of games played, Trent Brown is pretty much on par with Teron Armstead. And so, yeah, you might only get Trent Brown for like 9-10 games and then he's out for the year or something along those lines. So, yeah, you need to go and get a right tackle in the first round. And I think that there are going to be a lot of options available there.
To me, best case scenario that I think Duke Tobin, literally as soon as pick number 17 went through, would have the phone call to Roger Goodell. Like, it would take him about 15 seconds. He wouldn't have to waste any more time, is Talise Fuaga, right tackle out of Oregon State. That is absolute best case scenario. I mean, PFF last year rated him an 88.2. He was the 4th rated tackle in NCAA football last year. 4th out of 628.
It's pretty good.
That's pretty darn good. And we keep talking. We've heard a lot over these last couple of weeks, talking about J.C. Latham and also Amarius Mims, who we'll talk about here in a few minutes, of being large men. Talise Fuaga is a big dude, too. 6'6", 334 pounds, which is technically 1 pound lighter than J.C. Latham. So he is a big dude. Now, the one thing that I don't know, red flag is the furthest thing from it. But if you want to say maybe he's not the perfect fit for the Bengals, is most of his experience and his strength is in run blocking. Now, that's not necessarily something that the Bengals rely on as much, but that almost might be a good thing to get a mauler in there to help with the run blocking on offense for the Bengals. But I think we can both agree, Mick, that Fuaga, barring like Joe Alt falling, which again, I don't expect that, but I think has a chance to be there at 18, but more than likely is not going to be Fuaga's best case scenario.
Yeah, I really like Talise Fuaga. I don't think he's going to be available at 18, but if he does, I do agree. I think he would be the slam dunk pick if he's available. And I guess we'll see how the draft kind of shakes out. I think that he's probably going to go somewhere between the 10 to 15 range. A lot of people have a mock to New Orleans. But yeah, I do like his run blocking ability. And then also his gap grade his gap run blocking grade's really good too at a 78.9. It's better than other people in that realm with, like J.C. Latham or Amarius Mims or Jordan Morgan. And the Bengals like to use their run scheme is more gap scheme heavy. His pass blocking grade isn't as good as his run blocking grade, but still it's at an 80.0 even. I think he's a great prospect. He's not as big as a J.C. Latham, but still pretty good size, like you said, 6'6", 334. And I think he's going to be a really good tackle in the NFL.
That's best case scenario to me. I mean, I think Duke Tobin would probably do a flip, and you'd hear like a scream coming from Cincinnati that if he was available there at 18. You mentioned two of those other guys for tackle, and I think both are very interesting. And we can start with J.C. Latham, 6'6", 335-pound, out of Alabama. PFF rated him as the 17th rated tackle in NCAA football, which again, that's out of 628. So 17th that's pretty darn good, especially when you compound that in that he's playing in the SEC, which is, a really good conference. He is experienced too, which is something else that I think the Bengals would probably like in there. 25 career starts at right tackle.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of J.C. Latham. You talked about 17th in SEC play. I mean, you're the SEC guy. If he's playing in the Pac-12 like Talise Fuaga, is he rated top 5? I would say he probably is. I think he is really good in the pass blocking game. 81.7 grade per PFF. He's not great in gap scheme run blocking, 68.7 grade. But he does have a really quick first step for a guy that big. His athletic profile, I think, is on the upper end of the tackles in this draft. He does need to work on his pre-snap reads. He does get a little too, excited at times when going into run blocking snaps. He lunges at times at players, which you need to have a little more patience in the NFL. But I think that, honestly, I mean, he would be my number one guy that the Bengals would draft if Talise Fuaga isn't available. So I think if one of those two guys are available at pick number 18, the Bengals are sitting in a really good spot.
Yes, without question with that. The next guy on my list is a guy that when we talked, I don't remember if it was a month ago, if it was yesterday. I'm old Mick, so I forget these things. They run together. But I describe this guy as a lottery ticket. And that is Amarius Mims. 6'7", 340 pounds out of Georgia. He has only had eight career starts.
Yeah.
Battled some injuries, but if you're talking about potential, he oozes it. I mean, I think you could potentially even make an argument that if you're going for the ceiling, he might have the highest ceiling of any tackle in this draft. But he might have the lowest floor of any, because there is so much. So that's why I think he's the perfect example of a lottery ticket. Now, I do think the Bengals are in a better chance to possibly take a lottery ticket now that they have Trent Brown. Now, should they? I don't know, but I think they are in a better chance to potentially take it with a guy like Mims, because I think that's what he is.
So the lottery ticket dilemma, I think, is a good point to bring up. He's obviously very raw, not a lot of experience at the college level. He has had injury problems. Amarius Mims is not personally on my draft board at this point because of those reasons. And then also on top of that, the Bengals haven't shown a great ability at developing offensive linemen. We spent a second-round pick on Jackson Carman in 2021. He has been a bust. Cordell Volson, fourth-round draft pick, hasn't really. I think we saw a slight improvement in his play in the
He's
second
been fine.
half of 2023. He's been okay, but it hasn't been great. Jonah Williams is largely regressed. Since 2020, I mean, he had a good 2021. Did not have a good 2022. Now he was battling injuries in 2022. Then they moved him to the right side in 2023, and I think there was an adjustment issue for him there. But I don't think it's a good idea for the Bengals to take on a project at right tackle. For just all of those reasons that we stated, that the Bengals are not good at developing offensive linemen, and this guy is a project in every sense of the definition.
I do not expect them to take him. And to me, he's one of those guys that you could see dropping and potentially even going to day 2. Just because you have a bunch of those teams that don't want to take the lottery ticket. And it wouldn't shock me if he's there at pick 33 for, I guess, is the Panthers that are picking 33rd. It wouldn't shock me if he's there for them. Now, I don't necessarily expect that, but he just seems like he is one of those guys that could potentially drop throughout the list. Scott, we're going to come in up to tight ends here in a few minutes. There's one in the first round that a lot of people like a lot that we'll talk about. Other right tackles, got a guy out of Washington, Troy Fautanu. I don't know how you say it. Out of Washington. I know Mel Kiper really likes him.
I like him a lot too, but I think he projects more to a guard in the NFL. I don't think he's big enough.
And that is exactly the point that I was getting ready to make. I mean, ESPN has rated him as the second best tackle in the draft behind Joe Alt. That might be a little strong, but if he's there, I think it's at least a question, but I still don't think he's the perfect fit. To me, it's Latham or Fawaga. Or do you have somebody else that you're looking at for right tackle?
The other person I looked at, now the problem is this guy's a left tackle, but you have Trent Brown there. Maybe you can try to transition this guy to the right side, but I really do like Jordan Morgan, the offensive tackle out of Arizona. 83.5 PFF grade, 87.3 grade in pass block. Isn't good, isn't very great in run block gap scheme, or no, run block running scheme. My bad. I don't know what I'm saying. Gap run block scheme. My God. 66.3 grade, but he has a good athletic profile, ranks 8th amongst tackles on NFL.com. Has really good grip strength, slides quick on inside counters, needs to work on his hand placement, but he had a really good year in 2023 despite tearing his ACL late into 2022. Now, does the ACL injury scare people? Probably. I don't think it necessarily scares me, considering he was able to bounce back as strongly as he did. Yeah, I think he would be a slam dunk if they could rely on Trent Brown to stay healthy and let him develop into the right tackle. Or if anything, you could eventually move Orlando Brown Jr. to the right side eventually and have Jordan Morgan take a crack at the left tackle. Yeah, I don't know if you've looked at Jordan Morgan at all, but
I have not much.
I think that he's an underrated prospect who could go in the first round of the draft.
Switching to another position group that I know you're not as high on the Bengals potentially taking it, but I think if one of these guys is there, they will at least consider it. That's defensive tackle. Now, you split the defensive tackle position into two groups. 3-tech and nose tackle, at least for the Bengals, as far as to what they would be looking at. Nose tackle, there isn't one in the first round. There's one guy that I think we're going to be talking about a lot next week in Devondre Sweat. But I can't imagine the Bengals taking him at 18. I can't imagine them reaching that far to take a guy like him.
If they take Devondre Sweat in the first round, that is strictly a needs pick.
And it might be a need.
It is a need. It's 100% a need, but I don't think...
Is it a reach at first round, pick 18 need?
Yes. Oh, wait. No.
Okay, I was going to say, wait a second. No, I don't think it is.
It is a reach. Yes, it is a reach. I think that he is a fringe late first round, early second round pick, given that there are no nose tackles really other than him that are, first or second round pick potentials.
Yeah, I mean, in the third round, you got the guy out of Texas A&M, whose name now escapes me.
McKinley Jackson.
Yes. He's probably a third round guy. But there's just not a lot of nose tackles in this draft anyways for the Bengals. Not a lot at all.
No.
And that's not good when you are a team that needs a nose tackle. Now, what's interesting, and Scott brings up DJ Reader here, Mick, we were talking about this before we went, is the knock on Devondre Sweat is his athleticism. He's not an athlete. You look at his RAS score, which is a good way to say how athletic a person is. Now, is it a perfect example? No, it's not. Devondre Sweat is rated as a 4.18, and that's a scale of 0 to 10. To put things in perspective, Vita Vea, 9.51. Dexter Lawrence, 9.86. Now, at the same time, DJ Reader was a 2.97. So you don't read too much into that, but at least it's something to consider. And I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about Devondre Sweat on next week's show once we dive into the second and the third round, even though he's probably in a window where the Bengals aren't going to be picking, barring a surprise trade of T. Higgins or someone else, probably into that top 40 range. The other two guys at the 3-tech position that are probably going to be there at 18, one more likely than the other. You've got Byron Murphy and you've got Johnny Newton. Byron Murphy, the second-rated defensive lineman in the NCAA last year via PFF. Number 2. Playing in a good conference. That'll get it done. And even Byron Murphy has experience on offense. He was used as a fullback at times and even caught some passes out of the backfield, similar to Juan Domatapeko, if you remember that they'd use him into that fullback position. Now, is that going to be the reason the Bengals take him? No. But I just at least found it interesting. Johnny Newton, PFF loves him, also known as Jerzon Newton out of Illinois. They love them some Johnny Newton. He's their eighth rated prospect in this NFL draft on their big board. Number 8.
Yeah.
Both of these guys good against the run. And honestly, if the Bengals took either one, I'm not going to be mad.
No, I wouldn't be mad at it either. They did sign Sheldon Rankins in, a couple weeks ago. But he's on a 2-year deal. He's on the latter half of his career. He's not the long-term fix. In the defense, the 3-tech position, I think, is probably one of the more valued positions in the league. I do think you need to try to find your 3-tech in the future. And we talk about how the Bengals like to future-proof the roster through the first round of the draft, essentially the first few rounds of the draft. I mean, them drafting Dax Hill in 2022, drafting Miles Murphy in 2023. I mean, those weren't immediate needs that they had, but they thought it was
Although,
important for them to future-proof these positions.
what I'm thinking about this though, now that you said this, I'm not sure I'd really thought about this. Is that prior to them being drafted, the last time they did that was 2016. Cedric Ogbuehi. They don't really have a good track record of hitting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think,
when they're trying to get guys to learn a year under.
I don't know if you can really judge that though, because I mean,
no, I'm more just saying that it's.
I think
funny.
The coaching staff has a lot more say in draft decisions by the Bengals than they do for other teams in the NFL. Just because, yeah, you have Duke Tobin as your director of player personnel, but he's not your de facto GM. I mean, he's your de facto GM. He's not a technical GM. And I think you've seen better drafting in the Zach Taylor era than you've seen in the Marvin era. But yeah, I think I don't know. If you're looking to future proof, I think Jerzon Newton or Byron Murphy could be your guys for sure. I don't think Byron Murphy's I don't think he's available at pick number 18. I do think Jerzon's available at 18. But am I picking him over a Latham or Fuaga? I'm not, unfortunately, even though I do love Jerzon Newton's tape. I think the guy is legit. I think he's better than Byron Murphy. Just personally speaking here. But yeah.
Both of them would excite me a lot, of being an interior defensive lineman that could turn into a wrecker. And there, if anything else, worst case scenario, I mean, let's be real, Mac, and I'm surprised you're not on the table vouching for one of these guys even more, because if they draft one of these guys, guess what that probably means? Your boy is gone.
Who's my boy?
Zach Carter will probably no longer be on the team.
Oh, yeah. Oh, thank God. I don't think he's on the team anyways, after these past 2 seasons.
But still, you moving on, like you getting that and getting a guy like him, getting a guy like Murphy or Newton would guarantee the end of Zach Carter. But I think those are the 2 defensive linemen that you'd really be looking at. T'Vondre Sweat would probably be a reach, but other than that, I can't imagine them going interior defensive lineman for any other position. Now, the one that I think position group that if you would have told me 3 months ago would be this high on the Bengals potential need list / want list / potential of drafting, I wouldn't have believed it, is corner. But I see a path where the Bengals could take a first-round corner this year.
I do too. It's mostly because I think that you're going to have a lot of really good NFL corners available at pick 18. One guy I love who I don't know, I think it's probably a 50-50 chance he's available at 18. That's Quinyon Mitchell, the cornerback out of Toledo. That guy is awesome. 91.6 coverage grade in 2023, 85.9 zone coverage grade, which we know, I think we both agree that Lou likes to run more zone coverage scheme with his defensive backs and linebackers than running man. So that's great. 51.1 passer rating allowed when targeted, did not give a touchdown in 23. Now, the caveat with that is that he did play against MAC conference competition, which is not the best competition you can play against at the college football level. But I really like him. He has great tackling skills. He ranks 4th in athleticism score on NFL.com amongst corners. Does need to work on his man coverage, but the Bengals don't run that much man coverage, so I don't think that's a huge concern for me. If he's available, I think he's definitely in the running for that pick as well.
I think Rick asks here, he says, first-round quarterback. Wow. To me, and I'm trying to play this out throughout my head, Mick, and you can disagree with the percentages if you want. I would say right now, let's just say Bengals 70% chance to take a right tackle. Let's just say 70. Yes. I'd probably go 15 defensive to tackle, maybe even 20. And then corner to me is probably in that sort of, let's say 15. That's an easier number. So then you have 85%, then you have 15% open up.
I would personally flip-flop corner and defensive tackle just because there are more corners available. That wouldn't be considered reaches, I don't think, at pick number 18.
But, okay, let's just say 15 and 15 then. Just for example. So 70, 15, and 15. Now, I know that there's a little window in there that we're going to talk about, so it's not quite. But I think that, let's just use that as an example. I think it is pretty close into that realm of being a likely of a corner. A couple more stats that I have on Quinyon Mitchell as well. I mean, you mentioned the PFF grades. I was number 1, highest rated corner of all of them in NCAA football last year. Now, you did mention Mac. Read into that what you want. 15 pass breakups last year. And another thing that stands out that Lou really likes, he's quick. Lou likes quick corners. You've looked over these past couple of years, he's always drafted guys that have a lot of speed. So that's why I'd like Quinyon Mitchell. Another guy, Terrion Arnold, corner out of Alabama, 5 interceptions last year.
I like Terrion Arnold, but I don't like him in Lou's defense. He is a man. He is a strictly man-to-man corner, and the Bengals don't necessarily run that much man coverage where I would think he would provide a benefit to the defense.
The one thing that does stand out to me with him is he's a willing tackler. He's a guy that he go up against the run and so on, which is something the Bengals need more of in the back end of their defense.
Yeah, he's physical as hell. Don't get me wrong. He is great at press man coverage. He's good at tackling. I just don't know. I just don't think he's a great fit.
What's up, B-Love? Well, thank you for joining us. Nate Wiggins out of Clemson is another guy.
Yeah.
Drop us why.
Yep. Good coverage grade, 83.9. Isn't great in zone, 74.0. He's a little bit better in man. He is your tall, lanky, one-on-one cover corner, but I think he is more polished in zone coverage than Terrion Arnold is. 44.4 passer rating allowed, which is pretty good. His athleticism score is great.
Which is something the Bengals like.
Yeah.
Especially in their secondary.
Yeah, runs a 4.2840. First team all ACC last year. Great recovery speed on deep routes. I watched this tape recently. Anybody trying to throw a go ball on him, you could just see his 4.28 speed coming into play there, where he is just closing in so fastly and contesting every deep ball that's going his way. Now, he does need to work on the run support. He's not great at tackling, but that's something that can be developed at the NFL level, I think.
And a lot of that goes with, you mentioned athleticism, and he's rated as a 9.41, his RAS score, which is elite. But what's crazy is all of these stats are on a scale of 0 to 10. His height, 6'1", is 9.3, they graded. His 40-yard dash of 4.28, that's a 9.98. That's that's as good as you can potentially get. His 20-yard is a 9.62. His 10-yard is a 9.55. The one huge caveat, his weight, 173. They have that is rated as a 0.65.
Yeah.
That's drastically low, and that's probably a reason why he struggles tackling sometimes, because he's just not a big guy.
No. And that's the thing I'm kind of worried about. Is he going to be a DJ Turner 2.0? Now, I don't want to write off DJ Turner yet, but I think we all noted that his physicality was lacking in 2023. Now, is that something they can develop? Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. It's easier to develop good ball skills in close speed and all that stuff than it is to develop physicality, being more physical, I think, at the catch point. So that is something that I think is a little bit of a worry with Nate Wiggins, but I do think he's a pretty good prospect.
Rick says here about David Mulligetta as well. He says, he has a major impact on T. Concern me with his antics and tactics. I I don't know that the Bengals wouldn't draft a guy that was represented by him, but I'd be interested if they were like, if it's, and I don't know, let's just say Mulligata represents JC Latham. I don't think that's accurate, but we're just going to say that. And you have Latham and Newton, just as an example, and it's a 50-50 in the Bengals realm. Would they lean more towards Newton because he's not represented by him? I don't know, but it at least would be kind of interesting. Or what else?
They do it to just piss him off.
Yeah.
I would do it to piss him off.
Not a fan of David Mulligata?
I mean, I don't want to say I'm not a fan of David Mulligata, other than that him and the Bengals just they frankly don't get along. I mean, I'm never going to be mad at an agent for representing his player to the best that he can, right? I mean, that's his job. That's what he does. And he's pretty darn good at it, given the Deshaun Watson contract.
He's the Scott Boras of the NFL.
Or Rich Paul, I would say Rich Paul of the NFL. He's really good at his job.
Yeah, if I was a player, I'd want him as my agent.
Yeah, I 100%.
Yeah, and now if I was Katie Blackburn, I
don't like the guy very much. No, yeah, he's probably a headache for the Blackburn Brown family.
I can't imagine. Do you have any other corners? Do you want to talk Cooper DeJean? I know we talked about him a little bit last week. Or do you have someone else?
I don't have much notes on Cooper DeJean just because I think he is going to be a safety at the NFL level. I know he played corner in college, and he has the versatility that Lou loves, and I know you were just about to say that.
Took the words out of my mouth.
Yes. And that is intriguing to me. But I just didn't do any notes on him. But I do like him as a prospect from what I've seen. He does seem like he's going to provide a lot of value for some NFL team out there. It might be the Bengals. Yeah, I don't think the Bengals are writing him off by any means.
No, I would be surprised, but I wouldn't necessarily be angry. I guess if that makes sense.
I wouldn't be angry at all.
He would be one that would make me go, ooh. Okay, but not like a couple of years ago when they drafted John Ross, and I was like, "What are we doing? What are we doing? Like, what are we doing?"
Now, I think there is a little bit of concern because of his versatility. I mean, is it going to be another Dax Hill situation where they try to plug him in at a position that he's not necessarily best suited for? And I think that's a valid argument to have. The other name I wanted to bring up, now he slid down draft boards in recent months, but I think. I personally think he's probably my number 2 or my number 3 corner in the whole draft, and that's Kool-Aid McKinstry, the cornerback out of Alabama. 87.8 coverage grade, really good in zone coverage, 83.8. His passer rating allowed, 73.1, which isn't as good as Nate Wiggins or Quinyon Mitchell, but I still think it's okay. Not great athleticism, but not terrible. He ranks 12th amongst corners. But the thing that I really like about him is just his smarts. He's really good at reading routes when defending receivers, whether in man or zone coverage. He's really patient on the back end. Needs to work on covering deep routes, but I don't think that's necessarily a huge concern, just given how the game has transformed in recent years. Teams are working more the underneath game more than ever at this rate. And I think that his underneath game is top notch. And he does need to work on his aggression a little bit. But I think Kool-Aid McKinstry is a very slept on prospect. And I don't get why he's fallen down draft boards as badly as he has.
You want to know one thing that Kool-Aid McKinstry is also known for?
I don't know. What?
Returner.
Yeah. Okay.
He is more of what you would classify as the Pac-Man Jones in that realm. Now, I'm not saying he's a head case or anything like that, but he would bring the versatility there in that. Now, he's primarily just returned punts in college, which the Bengals already have a guy. I think Charlie Jones was fine. He only, I think, returned like 1 kickoff in his career at Alabama, I think for like 4 yards. Now, was that he didn't have the opportunity? He wasn't good at it. I don't know. That could be. And I also, off the top of my head, couldn't tell you who Alabama's kickoff returner was last year either to know maybe Alabama had somebody who was just better. But that is something as well that we mentioned. Bengals do need some juice into that return game, especially with those new rule changes. Done with the secondary then?
Yeah,
or did you have
quick
another
question
point?
on the kickoffs.
Okay.
Has the NCAA talked about adopting this rule change?
Not that I've heard of.
Okay.
Not that I've heard of. Doesn't mean it won't happen, but you would imagine it would happen.
Yeah, it's got to eventually happen, right? I mean, this seems like something that's going to be
And then I'll
probably
be
a thing at all levels of football now.
Yeah.
I mean, high school, college, Pee Wee. I mean, that's.
It wouldn't blow my mind if they wait 1 year to see. Let's see what the NFL thinks about it, because it wouldn't shock me if the NFL does this 1 year and they're like, "This sucks. We're never doing this again. We're done with it," and they push it to the side and say, "We're not coming back to this." And then in that case, then everybody has to change. So that's where I think they almost wait 1 year and then try it again. But I think if it works, you're going to see it at every level, because you should. There's no reason that it's like, it doesn't make sense to me that men's college basketball is the only level of basketball, male, female, that plays halves. Every other one plays quarters. But men's college basketball plays halves. Why? Women's college basketball is quarters. NBA, quarters. High school, quarters. AAU, I presume, quarters. Junior pro basketball, quarters. College basketball, though, we're playing halves. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. We're getting off topic, though. Next position group. Or were you done with secondary?
Yeah, I'm good on the secondary.
Wide receiver / tight end. I kind of just looped these two together because
pass catchers.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good one. Number one on the list, we have to at least mention him. I don't think there's a chance he's there. But if he's there, I think, Bengals fans start frothing at the mouth, is Brock Bowers. And the question I have for you, Mick, is let's say he's there. And obviously, I know your probably next question is going to be who else is there? Is J.C. Latham there? Is insert guys, are they there too? But let's just say he is there. Does Gesicki's signing take the Bengals out of the running, or do you think it doesn't even matter?
I think it takes him out of the running. And I'm not saying that Gesicki is a top-notch tight end. I think he's pretty mediocre in that department. Don't want to not say I hate the guy. I think he's going to be okay in the Bengals offense. But I think it does take him out of the running just because they have needs in other parts of the roster. And I think wide receiver is more important than the tight end position for them to draft. It sounds like they're on this 1 year rental tight end train. I don't think they really have a want to draft a tight end early. No, they get one in the later rounds. I guess we'll see. There's a guy in the later rounds that I love. Do you know who Ben Sinnott is?
Yes, from
Kansas State.
Yes.
Tight end out of Kansas State. That guy, I don't know if you watched this tape, but he looks like
he's
an
a
NFL
freak
tight
athlete,
end.
isn't he?
He is a freak athlete. Yes, he is.
I'm gonna have to look that up now because I think I saw his RES score being through the years.
Yeah,
I think Rick brings up the point. If he's there, that's tough to say no to, though.
I think I probably do take him if he's there. He's probably the best tight end prospect we've seen since. Who would you say? I mean, I know Kyle Pitts. I guess Kyle Pitts.
But Kyle Pitts Brock Bowers is more of a traditional tight end than Kyle Pitts.
I can agree with that statement.
Because Kyle Pitts is a freak.
Yes,
there's not a position for him in the NFL. That's probably part of the reason is because he's not a wide receiver and he's not a tight end. Now, you could make an argument that that's Gesicki, a little bit of his problem, that he's really not either. And it'll be interesting to see how the Bengals use it. You mentioned Sinnott. His RAS score is a 9.5 or a 9.49, which is elite in the tight end position. But I think, Brock Bowers, is he going to be there? Highly unlikely. Somebody is going to take a flyer is not the right word. Somebody is going to jump on him, as they should. But if he's there, it's hard to say no. It's hard to say.
I agree with that. Now, I do think he's going to slide just because of the position value of the tight end position. I have him mocked to the Colts at 18, or no, at 15. My bad, not at 18.
It's like trade.
Very, very, very real possibility that he could go higher than that. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be against drafting Brock Bowers at 18. Now, if Fawag is available at 18, I think it's a toss up.
What a great problem to have.
Fawaga versus Bowers, yeah.
What a great problem to have.
That's just Chase versus Sewell all over again.
Yeah, yes, it is. And I can hear Alex Schubert right now because you're getting ready to talk about wide receivers, and man doesn't want him to take a wide receiver in the first round, our good friend. But if they do, to me, there's one name that I think is in that window for them. Now, there are some that could drop. You know, the Adunzes, the Marvin Harrisons. Now, I can't imagine a scenario where either one of those guys drops. Or Malik Neighbors. They're not going to drop. But theoretically, one of them could be caught with a gas mask. Or they could. I don't think
that matters anymore, but I get what your metaphor is here.
Yes. Or maybe, like, I know Mo Egger made the joke that he wanted to pay somebody $100,000 to drive
make
down
him
to Georgia
at a bar or something. Yeah.
To get into a bar fight with Brock Bowers so he'll drop to the Bengals at 18. So maybe we could say that with Adunze or Marvin Harrison Jr. or something. But even then, I don't think it would matter because I think those guys are freaks and somebody would still take them.
I think Adunze, by the way, I don't want to get too far off topic, but I think that he is starting to turn into my favorite wide receiver of this draft class.
He's really, really, really good. I remember the first time I watched Washington this year was when they played, I think it was against Oregon. And it was one of those things that I was flipping through and like stopped in the game because it was a good game or close game or something like that. And it wasn't me watching for 30 seconds and he made a contested catch up the far sideline. And it was immediately like, who is this guy? Like, I like what I see from you. And then from that, I followed him all year.
He is T. Higgins with way better speed.
Correct. Now, you mentioned he's T. Higgins. Well, the guy that I was going to mention up is probably in that realm as well. Brian Thomas from LSU.
I don't love Brian Thomas Jr.
I don't necessarily love it, and I don't expect them to draft him here. But who are you looking at for wide receiver? Because to me, he's the only one that might fit in that realm of pick 18. Since we're talking 18. Now, day two, we're going to have, day two, we could literally list off 15 guys.
Well, here's the problem with 18 versus day two, because there are a lot of wide receivers who are in between that 18 to 49 range.
Keon Coleman, yeah, guys like that.
Keon Coleman's not personally on my list, but I'm looking at a Lad McConkey. I'm looking at a Troy Franklin, wide receiver out of Oregon. I don't know if you've seen Troy Franklin's tape, but that guy is absolutely electric.
A guy that could rise. You keep mentioning him, Xavier Legette. I don't think he would probably. I think Roman Wilson.
So I think Legette and Wilson. I know that Legette's stock is rising. I think Mel Kiper actually had him towards the tail end of the first round in his most recent mock draft. I think he's more likely available at 49 than some others. One name that I think is really slept on, and yeah, is he considered a reach at 18? Probably, but I doubt he's available at 49.
Are you going to do it? Are you going to do it? Are you going to do it?
It's not Malachi Corley.
It's Malachi Corley. Did you not see that the Bengals were at his pro day?
Malachi Corley. Oh, by the way, that's upside down. Yes, now it's not.
There it is.
Number 2, Malachi Corley is a store brand Deebo Samuel.
I will say that this is a source that told me, and it's a good source, that Malachi Corley went to dinner after the pro day with the Steelers. And I'm like, I don't need that again. I don't need all my guys to get drafted by that damn team. But okay, go.
They're lost, man. Anyways, I'm not too big on Malachi Corley, if you couldn't tell. He was all bubble screens in pretty much Deebo Samuel gadget plays at Western. And that's the only reason why he had good production. Anyways, The name that I think is slept on, and yeah, he might be a reach at 18, but I doubt he's available at pick number 49. And I don't know if you're going to like this pick, but Ricky Pearsall, the wide receiver out of Florida, I think is a slept on prospect. One, he is primarily a slot guy. Where did the Bengals have pretty much a need at the wide receiver position in 2023 or 2024? The slot wide receiver position. The guy, and I don't know, I don't want to stereotype here because his player comp for me is also a white guy. But Cooper Kupp, I see a lot of Cooper Kupp's game and Ricky Pearsall on the tape that I watch. 65 receptions, 963 yards, 4 touchdowns in 2023. Runs a pretty good 40-yard dash, 4.41. Really smart route runner, a lot like Kupp. Good at jabbing the corner to break off on routes, a lot like Kupp. He isn't great against press coverage, but how often does a slot really deal with press man coverage? I don't think a slot really deals with that much press man coverage. Needs to work on his contested catches, but I think that's something that can be developed. And again, his route running savvy is I think one of the best in this draft class. So yeah, I mean, I think that it is highly unlikely they draft Ricky Pearsall at pick number 18. But if they pick him at pick number 18, I'm not mad at it whatsoever.
To me, they trade T. Higgins for a top 40 pick.
They don't necessarily have to do that, though.
Well, what I'm saying is that they pick them 35th. Yeah, I don't know who picks 35th. That's what I'm saying. And he's your guy. Or something that we're going to talk about here in a few minutes that I think is important, and it might even be the time to bring it up right now. Are you done with wide receivers?
Yeah, I don't think I have any.
Because I think this is an interesting scenario to discuss for the Bengals before we get to some wild card names. Trade back.
I mean, I'm not against it. Trade back, pick up some picks.
Let's just say, so for one, I think the first point is what would it need to look like for the Bengals to trade back?
I would say you need to get either you probably need to get a top 35 pick. And
let me clarify this. Let me clarify that. And by that, I mean, like, what would the draft board look like? So who's gone? Like, would this mean that they're loaded and like everybody that they want is still there? Or does it mean that Fawaga, Latham, Mims, Murphy, Newton, it's just like everything that could have potentially gone wrong went wrong for the Bengals as far as taken off the board? Do you get what I'm saying there?
I think if Fawaga and Latham are gone, I think there's a good possibility they trade back.
Because I think if they trade back, I don't think they drop lower than like 24.
No, I think that's it depends because I mean you're going to have an additional pick tacked onto that. Now I'm thinking, yeah, if you're not going any lower than 24, what are you going to get as that additional pick? Are you going to get a third or a fourth round maybe?
Probably a third.
Could the Commanders trade up with picks number 36 and 40 to get a guy at 18? I think that is a possibility, and I would probably take that if I'm the Bengals.
I would need another pick. Gosh, I don't know.
36 and 40?
Give me a day 3 in there. Or a future day 3.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a first round pick.
I think 36 and 40 are enough. Personally. It's
I don't know that I take
But
that.
The Bengals historically have not done this in the first round. I don't think I've ever recalled them trading back in the first round. Now, the second round, they do it virtually every year.
They love it. But I think it's, when we were talking about the percentages, or I guess we should talk about pie since that's what the Bengals like to talk about. I think if you're talking about what slice of the pie of likelihood in the first round is trade back, I would say it's a very small piece of pie. Very small piece of pie.
Less than 5% chance.
Oh, I was even going to say like 1 to 2%. Yeah, like it's going to be a very small piece of pie. But it's not a non-existent piece of pie.
No.
Whereas quarterback, running back, those are non-existent pieces of pie. this is at least there. And I'd be interested to see what that was. But I mean, 36-40 for 18, it would be interesting. And so much of this too goes with what's the board look like at the time? Who's still there and so on as to what the Bengals would do when it comes to that. Because if you got a guy in the first round, like if J.C. Latham's there, like would you trade 36-40 for J.C. Latham or Talise Fawaga?
Oh, no. If those two are available, no.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of the interesting discussion that the Bengals will have to have. But I think it's interesting. Wild card picks. So to me, this is the positions that we haven't talked about, but could potentially be there. Now, or if they're there, they have to think about. Very unlikely, but would be exciting. Dallas Turner. I can't imagine a scenario that he's there. But, I mean, I know the Bengals don't need edge. But that'd be exciting.
Yeah, I mean, Dallas Turner, I think he's a pretty good edge rusher. It's kind of the PFF podcast likes to compare this to the Trayvon Walker versus Aiden Hutchinson discussion between him and Latu. And it's funny because they don't ever talk about Jared Verse, but he's like the guy in between them. Dallas Turner is the guy with insane measurables, athletically speaking, but his production isn't necessarily top of the class. I mean, it's pretty good. It's not like a Tyree Wilson last year where he was not really productive at the college level, but just an athletic freak. But I think that would be interesting. I think there's a decent possibility Lion Latu is available at pick number 18, and I think the Bengals do have to consider that. I mean, hell, his player comp is TJ Watt from Lance Zierlein. I think that's a pretty ringing endorsement.
But does that fit the Bengals defense?
I mean, yeah, I still think it will as a 4-3 edge rusher. I think it'd be fine. Wild card picks. Who else could there be?
Here's one for you. And it would be one that I wouldn't necessarily be mad at because we mentioned the Bengals love to take picks for the future. And it's a guy that has risen a lot over the last 6 weeks. Jackson Powers Johnson.
Yeah.
Guard center from Oregon.
I'm gonna tack on to that and also add Graham Barton, who I think is transitioning to the center position. He's an offensive lineman out of Duke, which I think that his combine has, and also his play on the field has been really good. But his combine, I think, has made him risen on a lot of draft boards.
And I think both of those guys, that position at 18, like I'm not going to be mad at if they do it because I think you're taking a pick to the future. Because right now the Bengals' interior depth at offensive line is awful. Well, really, depth in general at offensive line is awful.
Yeah,
they don't have any.
Yeah,
I think it's literally just Trey Hill right now.
Yeah. Now I will say there are a lot of good centers. I think in days 2 and 3 in the draft, you have a guy like Bo Limmer, center out of Arkansas, who I personally really like. Zach Frazier, center out of West Virginia, I think is pretty decent. There are some other names. They're kind of slightly.
Yeah, and we'll get to those. We'll get to those two over these next couple of weeks
as
well.
The only issue I have with them selecting center in the first round is that they like to select positions of value or highly valued positions. Now they did draft Dax Hill in the tail end of 2022, and safety isn't one of the more highly valued positions, but it's definitely more value. Center, I think, is the lowest value position in the league. If you're looking at overall contract money, I'm pretty sure it is. I think it is. I think it's interesting too. I
think an argument could be made. It's one of the hardest positions to play.
I agree. It's really hard. I mean, you're pretty much the quarterback of the offensive line, but you are the lowest paid position in the NFL. And we're talking about lower,
and also you're having to block guys like Aaron Donald.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. Or DJ Reader.
Yeah. Big SOBs. Big SOBs. Big SOBs.
And you're the focal point of the tush push if people try to run that. I mean, that's
Jason Kelsey.
Yeah. I don't get it. I don't get that. But that is something I would be kind of wary about them drafting a center in the first round. Also, they drafted Billy Price in the first round in 2018, and that sucked.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Lions. One pick away.
Okay. Has there ever been any? Do we know for sure they would have picked Frank Ragnow if he was available then?
I hope so.
Like, if they ever came out and said that, as Duke ever came out and said anything?
I don't think he would ever say that because, I don't think he would ever say that, but he probably thinks it. At least he should.
I don't know, because also, I mean, the pundits, the media pundits for the Bengals at the time, a lot of them were mocking Billy Price to the Bengals at pick number 21 or whatever it was in the 18 draft.
I just don't want any more offensive linemen from Ohio State. We haven't had great luck.
Nah, I could agree with that.
I haven't had great luck.
What
Another
name, Johnson or Michael Jordan. I like that guy.
No, that was he's the reason Joe Burrow tore his
gifted
ACL.
Joe Bell. Yeah, he gifted Joe Burrow a new knee.
He did. A name that I know the Bengals met with him at the Combine. I'd be stunned if they take him at 18, and this would probably be in the realm where I'd go, Chop Robinson, edge from Penn State.
Have you not watched Chop Robinson?
He's good. I mean, because everybody wants to say defensive end, mid to late first round from Penn State. Oh my goodness, he's got to be Micah Parsons.
He has a lot of Micah Parsons in his
does.
Game, actually.
And I know the Bengals met with him at the Combine. Does that mean anything? They get 30 visits. They use one of their 30 on him. And with him being a potential first round, late first, right? About where he is.
I think mid to late,
that should at least mean something. That they considered, that they met with him to at least consider him. He'd be interesting. He'd be in that wild card realm to me.
Yeah. I mean, just because, not because he's not, a pick number 18 value. I think he's, it would never shock me if any team picked on him in between 15 and 20. But just for the sheer fact that they did draft Miles Murphy last year, they don't have an immediate need at edge rusher. But also, you just look at the guy's tape, you're just thinking, man, this guy might be too good to pass up on. Also, his name is pretty cool.
Yeah, Chop Robinson. It's a good name. Do you have any other wild cards you want to drop in, or do we want to drop our first round predictions?
Let's go ahead and do the predictions.
Okay. We're making this in a couple of weeks. We're going to do our main predictions for the show of our 7-round mock. I'm making this rule right now, Mick. We are allowed to change for that. So we can change our mind in the next couple of weeks. So this is the Sunday, March the 31st, when we're recording this. This is our decision of who the Bengals will take, because a lot can change in a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot can change. Mick, who are the Bengals taking at pick number 18?
I'm going J.C. Latham, offensive tackle out of Alabama, just because I don't think
I agree. That's exactly who I think. That's exactly who I was going to say.
Now, if Fuaga's there, it's going to be Fuaga. I just don't think that he falls to 18. Yeah, I think it's probably J.C. Latham.
I agree. That's exactly the name I was going to say. I think it makes most sense. Fits a need. You get that guy. He can learn under Trent Brown, but he at least has experience in a decent league that if Trent Brown goes down week 1, you at least feel better about him starting. Whereas if you get a guy like Anamarius Mims, you at least get a little bit concerned on that. I see Rick agrees as well, picking J.C. Latham. But I think he makes the most sense as of right now. But that very well, I could change my mind in 3 weeks or whenever it is that we're doing our mock draft. I think it is 3 weeks from today. Our Bengals draft preview as to what it could be. But I think we agree J.C. Latham.
Yeah. Now, if Quinyon Mitchell's available, I'm almost considering Quinyon Mitchell as well.
Yeah, and you never know. And who knows what could change in the next 3 weeks, too, on him. Maybe he gets into a bar fight and his stock drops, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Or maybe Joe Alt gets into a bar fight or
I would not want to get into a bar fight with Joe Alt. That guy is 6'9".
Yeah, he's a big dude. He's a big dude. And I can't imagine that would stop anybody from drafting him. What's to come from us? Next week, we're diving into day 2. I think this is where we're going to talk a lot about those wide receivers. Mick already talked about Ricky Pearsall. We've talked about a couple of them already. Today, we're going to dive all the way into those because I think you're going to see a day 2 wide receiver. You might see a day 2 offensive lineman. If the Bengals go defensive lineman in the first round, they might go offensive lineman day 2. We'll talk about some of those guys, defensive linemen. Day 2 running back, maybe. I don't know. Be interesting to see all of those names for you to drop in there. It's interesting. You don't want to get
guys. I don't know if the guy I love is a day 2. He might be a day 3.
How about this? Let's save this as a tease next week for the guy that you love on next week's show. You'll let us know.
2 weeks from now. He might be a day 3 guy, but you're gonna hate this guy when I tell you. I might just tell you after the show. I'm gonna tell you after the show. I can't.
Is it the guy from Tennessee?
No, but you're gonna hate this guy just as much. I don't think Jalen. I also love Jalen Wright, but there's a late round guy that I really love.
Is it the guy from Louisville?
Yeah.
Okay. He's good. He's good.
Did he have a really good game against Kentucky?
No, Kentucky owns Louisville.
Okay.
So they own Louisville. And their defense always plays well against Louisville. But so then next week, all about day 2. In 2 weeks, all about day 3. 3 weeks from today on the 21st, our Bengals draft preview show. And then we're going to have a special edition on the Wednesday right before the draft, the 24th. We're going to do a mock draft as well, picking for every team in the first round to see what we can't do for it. I like that, Rick. Xavier Legette, day 2 pick. Mick would be very happy.
Or Robin Wilson. I'm okay with Robin Wilson, too. I don't think Ricky Pearsall is available at pick number 49. No. I'm sorry. He's literally Debo, but not nearly as good as Debo.
We'll talk to you next week on next week's edition of Jungle Juice. Make sure you follow us on all of our social media channels. We're also on your favorite podcasting platform. Thank everyone for listening, and we will see you next week. Hoo day.
Good day. Thanks for watching.